Okay.
Thank you for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, and in some cases, good evening. Welcome to our webinar session, Building a Great Business Analytics Solution for IBM I. I'm Jen Halverson, the Director of Sales and Marketing for Coglin Mill, located in Rochester, Minnesota. Our presenters today have a combined experience of almost a century on IBM I. And that doesn't say how old they are. Doug Fulmer has a long history with Rochester Products, including years in various technical and sales positions with IBM and as the systems architect for Clear Technologies. Today he joins us as the Partner Channel Manager at Help Systems and joins us from Dallas, Texas. Alan Jordan, or AJ, a native of Australia, is a Senior Vice President at Coglin Mill in Rochester, Minnesota, USA, and has been involved in IBM I development for his entire IT career. Alan oversees product direction and development and also manages the customer support team. He has extensive knowledge and experience in data warehousing technologies on IBM I and is a published author and regular speaker at Common and other events. Heath Kath joins us from the Twin Cities in Minnesota. He is a technical sales consultant and specializing in SQL demos, webinars, and customer support. At Help Systems, Heath has worked as an educational and consulting services instructor and as a technical support representative for automated operations and data access products. He is an IBM certified specialist on System I, previously working at IBM, working in the product support, testing, software support, and training areas. Let us get some quick technical housekeeping out of the way. Today's webcast will be muted for attendees, so there won't be any live interaction, but we will be able to answer your questions that you will have throughout the session. There's a panel on your right, and that area provides a little place for you to enter your questions that I will ask at the end of the webinar. Yes, we are recording today's presentation. The recording and the presentation will be made available online for you by the end of the day tomorrow is what I'm shooting for, and a link to that and a special sales offer for those who are watching this presentation will be sent to you in your email. So with that in mind, let us begin, and I'm going to turn this over to Doug. Mr. Fulmer, how are you today?
Doing great. Thank you very much for that spectacular introduction. Gosh, it makes us, we just feel in awe of what we're supposed to be as we talk. So what we're going to do is run through a relatively short bullet point agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you got to think about in a business analytics solution from a big picture level, clearly defining the solution, work our way through more of the technical detail with AJ talking about the extract, transform, and load process, and with Heath talking about the whole visualization piece. Then we'll come back, summarize what we've talked about, and open up for question and answer. So if we start with the big picture, you know, I'm going to give you 3 reasons to invest an hour or so with us today. You know, one is to learn the key questions that you've got to be able to ask and you've got to have answers for, the things you've got to plan for if you're really going to do a successful analytics project. The second piece is to understand in relatively good detail what ETL means and what are some of the things you really have to account for at the ETL stage of the game, if you will, to ensure that your project is successful. And then finally, to be able to have a conversation with those pesky end users about what visualization is and why it's important to the project, rather than saying, well, I'll get you some data, which, you know, sounds a little dull some of the time. So with those 3 reasons in mind, let's talk about what a classic design of one of these things would look like. You know, if you talk to someone who's in the business analytics business, they would generally tell you that it starts with a production data store. You've got data somewhere, maybe on multiple servers, but you've got a production data store that you're going to extract information from, transform and load it into some intermediate data store that then makes it available for use to those end users through some sort of visualization tool. And you know, it all just seems so straightforward when you're at a sales conversation level, but there's a lot more to it than that. So you really have to know some of the questions that you, as the person running the, I guess I'd call it the pointy end of the spear, really needs to be able to ask at their place of business to define this thing. So let's start with what are some of the things that you've got to do. Because what you find is most people agree that business analytics is a good thing. Hardly anybody says, oh, no, this is a bad thing to do. But once you get past that, oh, this is a good thing, it all becomes very confusing. You know, people want to talk to you about the age-old story of beer and diapers. That's the famous business intelligence story that's been told over and over and over and over and over. But you really have to, before you even think about going much farther, clearly define the rules of engagement that are going to make or break the project. You really have to make sure that everyone that's associated with the project is looking clearly at each other in the eye and nodding their heads in agreement on what this thing is really going to do. Because it's really a lot more about business than it is technology. If you find yourself delivering a pure technology play, you're probably going to be in trouble. So let's talk about the business side for a moment. You know, what business decisions are going to be influenced by this project and how? If you can't write that down on paper, if you can't spell it out, then you're probably going to have a problem during the course of the project because somebody's going to want to complain. Are there agreed upon expectations? Does everybody look each other in the eye and say, yep, if we can do these things, then we know that this is going to be a successful project? Is the business justification really there? You know, you hear these kinds of discussions very often where someone says, oh, these are $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 decisions. Yeah, but does everybody agree that that really is the magnitude of the decisions? Because what you are going to find out a little farther down is that this can be expensive. And if you haven't got the justification, you may have a little bit of a problem. Are the business people in your business in sync with you? If you start off to deploy an analytics solution and the only thing you've done is talk to the development staff and say, can we do this, and they nod their head, again, you're probably in trouble. The line of business people need to be in sync with you that this is really going to be a project they're going to invest emotionally and probably financially in to make sure that it's going to succeed. Do they understand from a business perspective that the project's going to be expensive? Now, it's not going to be millions of dollars expensive, and you need to be sure you're clear about that early on, but it's not going to be something you drop in for $5,000 or $10,000. It may require additional hardware. It's almost certainly going to require additional software. It's going to require some services in most cases. It's going to require the investment of people's time within the company. So there is going to be an expense, and you really have to be prepared to pay up for that expense. Everybody nod their head and say it's a good thing. You have to know who's going to use the content that you're creating. You don't want to build a project that you simply create some content that nobody uses, that you then have the famous shelfware solution, and you really want to do that. So who's going to use that content? One of the reasons it's important to know who's going to use that content is those are the people you better be asking the questions of what are you going to do with it, how are you going to do it, how often are you going to need it, what are we going to need to customize the visualization tools for you. You got to answer those questions. What will the data be used for? How will it be used? And as silly as it may sound to some, what metrics are you going to use to measure whether the project is a success or a failure? And if you look somebody on the business side in the eye and say, how are we going to measure whether this thing is really working or not, and they say, well, I don't have a clue, you're in trouble. Because then they're going to come back at some point and tell you this isn't working, and you'll have nothing to go back and compare against. Who will control the solution? There are lots of runaway projects that start off with an IT staff with a great idea that then runs into a project that's hijacked by the business line of business people who then decide they don't like the way the whole thing's being rolled out anyway, and everything begins to go down the tube. So you need agreement on the front end of who's going to control the solution. What are the expectations going to be for performance and response time? It's always a bad thing if the IT staff rolls out a business analytics solution and the dashboard on the CEO's desk, he or she runs in and clicks for the first time, and it takes 12 minutes to see that first query response, and they're not happy. So if everybody knows that there are some queries that may take longer than others, that the response times may be different in some point in the day if we're not in a separate partition or on a separate small machine perhaps, there are deployment issues that could impact that, which also then impacts the expense of the project. You have to have thought through those. You have to have given some thought, and this is probably more back on the technical staff side, so what potential problems are you going to have with the data? AJ's going to talk a lot during his piece of this about, how can you fix those problems? What are they going to be? What can I do with the tool to fix those so that they don't create all kinds of issues with the end users who are seeing duplicate data and totals they think are wrong and names that are spelled wrong and all kinds of things like that. You have to know who's going to need to see the data you're going to produce. And that will tell you, are there going to be some security ramifications? Again, AJ is going to talk a little about, when you're pulling this data out of the production tables and you're putting them into the intermediate data store, is everybody going to have the authority as they need to get the data, get it out of there, to see the data that they need to be able to see? How do you control some of that? What are the visualization requirements? What's the preferred viewer? It does you no good to roll out a fantastic business intelligence solution that is deployed to the browser so it's desktop neutral, only to discover that the only people who really need to see the data and want to see the data have an expectation that the viewer is going to be an Excel spreadsheet. So you have to know what the visualization requirements are and if there is a preferred viewer. And then finally, you really need to think about, and you need to give thought to, is this going to be easier to do if I just buy a tool? I mean, yeah, I can sit there and I can write endless RPG programs or COBOL programs or choose the language of your choice to build this stuff. And yeah, I could probably go write more of those programs to build some queries. But is that really going to satisfy the requirements? And is it going to cost you so much time that it takes you 2 years to deliver the project rather than 2 weeks or 2 months? So you really have to have thought through these kinds of questions. Now, at this point, we're going to talk a little bit more detail about the extract, transform, and load side. And I'm going to pass the control of the presentation over to AJ. AJ?
I'm here, Doug. Thank you very much.
It's good that you're there. It's good that it's good to have a change of accent from my clearly Northeast New York accent to your Southern Alabama accent.
Yeah, I've definitely got a Southern accent, yeah. Okay, well, thanks, Doug. That was a great introduction. So Doug's been talking about the business side, the business case, but inevitably once we've established that this is a good thing, we're going to go ahead with this BI project, we need to get down into some sort of technology. So and Doug's mentioned extract, transform, and load. So what we want to look at here is understand why we need to go ahead and do some sort of ETL. So what is the purpose of this? Why do I need to build this secondary data store, whether I call it a data warehouse, whether I just call it data marts? What are the problems that I'm solving? And Doug mentioned, problems with the production data. So let's just look at some of them. And all I've tried to do here is just put one chart full of example issues that you may have to deal with. This is not, by any means, all that you'll ever need to deal with. I'm sure if you think about your own businesses, you will know that there are many, many other types of issues that you need to deal with. But these are some of the common ones. First of all, disparate databases. 10 years ago, if you're an IBM or an iSeries AS400 shop, you probably only had AS400 data on all the apps that you had ran on that platform. But today, that's probably not the case. I'm sure everybody's got something in an Oracle database or a SQL Server database or DB2 on another platform. Maybe you're bringing in feeds from partners or from subsidiary organizations, or you're feeding back data back out to your head office, etc. So you've probably got multiple different applications or platforms that you need to deal with, and data coming in and going out to them. How do I join? How do I join data from an iSeries database to a SQL database? It's very, very difficult to do. You're going to have inconsistent data types. You're going to have the same customer, but with a different customer number in both databases, and all sorts of similar issues. You're also probably dealing with legacy dates. So if you're using J.D. Edwards or some other application that was written for iSeries 10, 15 years ago, the dates are in some sort of legacy format. J.D. Edwards, for example, uses a century Julian format. So it's year and day. So there's not even a month there. So if I want to report by month, how do I've got to do some sort of date conversion. And often you'll see dates with all 9. So what do they mean? So how do I handle that? That's obviously not valid. And then you've got all of the hidden meanings and conditional rules. And I'm not going to read all of them there. You can see it on the chart. But there are always inconsistencies or embedded values in the data that you need to deal with. If your end users are needing to deal with this when they're building their reports and creating the dashboards, the complexity of their job is multiplied by 10-fold or 100-fold. Getting back to J.D. Edwards, if you've got a J.D. Edwards implementation, all of your quantitative columns, such as the price, the quantity, etc., they're all 15.0 fields. But the J.D. Edwards Data Dictionary redefines the number of decimal places that you actually have. If you don't know that when you're dealing with the data, you're going to have some stellar sales results when you start producing your reports. So these are just some of the issues that you're going to have, and lead us into using extract, transform, and load and building some sort of data store. Now, on the chart that I've got here, this is a fairly typical enterprise scale implementation where we've got a central data warehouse. So this is our detailed level of information that we've pulled out of the operational systems, and we've cleansed it, we've standardized it. We've also got data marts, and then there's also a thing called an ODS, their operational data store. So these are all just different, so let's say, logical areas where I'm creating tables for my BI reporting. What is very, very critical and very important to recognize too is that when you're building this, you're building a business intelligence application. But the application consists of simply tables. It's tables and maybe some indexes and views based on them. Until I start building reports, there are no screens. So how do I understand? How do I empower my end users by letting them know what data is available to them then? Metadata is the way we do this. And so metadata is critical to a successful implementation, and it tells me what tables that I have, what columns are available in those tables, and what is the business meaning of the information that is stored there. Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of extract, transform, and load. Integrating disparate data. We've already mentioned this as one of the key things that is a part of the ETL process. Bringing data from different applications and standardizing it. So if I've got 3 or 4 different customer tables in different applications, each with different customer, different fields, but similar related data, I standardize it in my data warehouse or my data mart. So I have a single column name that is customer number or customer name, rather than the multiple different instances that I've got in my source applications. I transform, and I like to call them ugly data values, and we've all got them, we've all seen them, and it could be I have a gender field that's got 0, 1, and 2, and obviously it's probably you're going to wonder, okay, why do I have 3 genders? I don't know, but let's make them male and female. So when I'm looking at the data from my reports, I understand what the gender is, or I understand whether it's yes or no. To transform those very cryptic codes into more meaningful information. Often the raw data in a, let's say, transaction schema, so if I'm looking at sales data, invoice information, there may not be an extended value or that's pre-calculated, or a net sales value that's already there. I have to perform that calculation. And if I do it now at the ETL stage, then my end users don't need to guess at what the calculation might be. And if it's fairly common to go into a sales meeting and have multiple different people argue about what is the calculation for net sales. So we standardize it as part of the ETL process. This is the net sales value. You don't have to guess, and you can't make your own decision. Data quality is critical to a BI implementation. If we don't get if we don't provide trustworthy data to give you correct reports, then we're very, very quickly going to lose the faith of our end users and the whole project's going to fail. So it's very important that we make sure that whatever we're loading into our database is accurate. And that means I've got to do some sort of validation. And if I'm validating, then that implies that somehow I need to tell you that, hey, this was wrong, reject the data, and give you the opportunity to correct it, reprocess, etc. That in itself is a huge subsystem in the ETL process. And many of the reports that you're going to produce are going to be at some sort of summary level. They're going to be at division level, or company level, or year and month level. So if I need to process 100 million transaction rows every time I run this summary report, it's not going to perform very well. So the likelihood is that we're going to create some summary tables that are already aggregated up to the level that is ideal for this report or this set of reports. And just a simple example of how much a data mart can simplify my life as a report generator or report author. On the left-hand side of this chart, I've got a typical transaction schema, and when I say transaction schema, I'm talking about maybe the set of related tables that have information related to my invoices, my sales. So there'll be an invoice header and some line item detail table, and then the product table, the customer table, and lots of lookup tables, and the store table, the sales rep table, etc. All of them have got little pieces of information that are relevant to an individual transaction. If your database is like JD Edwards or one of those other legacy applications, you've probably got 6-character column names, and you won't have SQL column names in the database. So you've got to try and guess, or hopefully maybe you might have good text or column headings, but you've got those cryptic names that really are very meaningless from a usability perspective. You're going to have legacy dates, and the likelihood is that only very few of those columns are at all of interest to you when you're doing your BI reporting. On the right-hand side of this chart here, I've got a data mart that I've built from that schema on the left. So here I've flattened it out to just 3 tables. So I brought in descriptions, and I've probably got some duplication of data here across the rows in the table, but that's all good because it's going to simplify my end user reporting. I've converted dates into real dates. So now I can do things like using SQL functions at the report level to report by month or by year, even by quarter. I've got meaningful column names, so I've taken the time to put in SQL names. So I've got a name there, brand description. There is no ambiguity. I know exactly what that piece of data is. And I've performed those calculations so the end users don't need to guess. So this is the benefit of performing the ETL and providing the data marts and the data warehouse tables. I've now got data that is absolutely designed to be ideal and useful for business intelligence reporting, rather than the database that was designed to work perfectly to process one transaction at a time. So what is RODIN? We've talked about ETL. We've talked about the 2 products that we're going to show you today. So RODIN is, ETL is one of the functions of RODIN, but what else does it do? First of all, it builds and manages your data warehouse and data mart tables, and the indexes and the views that you might or probably will build over them. So you don't need to get dirty with the DDS or DDL. RODIN, working in a nice high-level interface, RODIN will build and manage those tables for you. We also capture information about the sources of data, the tables that we'll be pulling the data from. So we don't create these, of course, but we need to understand where they are and some information about them. RODIN includes a visual ETL designer. So this is the core of RODIN's functionality. I can just draw lines to map source column to target column, and there's a very powerful rules-based engine with a very user-friendly editors to allow me to build the business rules to perform the transformations and the validations that I would need to do. RODIN is metadata driven, so it's got a very extensive metadata layer. A lot of this is technical information about the source, the tables and columns about the source and the target and the rules, but it also has the capability of putting in free-form text at any level. So I can describe a column with 500 words or 5,000 words if I need to do that. I can describe a business rule. I can describe a transformation. So it gives me complete extensibility as far as describing and extending the information to all of my end users so that they can see what tables, not only what is the name of this table, but a business description about its usage, and same with a column, etc. It also manages the runtime environment. So when we're loading, it's typically, we might do some real-time ETL, but more often than not, it makes sense to do ETL at the end of the day, so RODIN controls that. And when we perform the ETL, errors could occur. So I need to be told about errors that might happen, data that gets rejected, and give me the opportunity to understand what that is and maybe rerun and reprocess after I've corrected the data. Doug mentioned security. It's very important that you give access to those who should have access and deny access to those who shouldn't. So when I'm creating the tables and the indexes, it's very important that I make sure that only the relevant people get authority to use them. And this is a development process. So building ETL, we're building an application, so it's going to take us probably a number of iterations to get it right, and we won't build it all at once in the first month of the project. We will start small and build one small subject area, get that into production, get the business value, get reinvestment into continuing the next cycle of the project. So we'll iteratively develop, and we'll find as we go along that we will probably want to extend things, bring in more data, and as the users get more and more comfortable and familiar with working with it, they're going to ask more and more difficult questions, which might mean that we need to bring in some more information. Okay, so I'm going to now go into a demonstration. I don't have a lot of time to do this, but I'm going to try and go through as much of this as I can. So we're going to look at the development client and look at these various areas of the RODIN functionality. Okay, so this is the RODIN development client. It's a Java-based application running on your PC, and we are talking to a metadata repository on my back-end iSeries. You can install multiple instances of RODIN, and in this particular LPAR that I'm working, I've got two separate RODIN environments installed. And this could be development and production, or you might have development, testing, and production. So we are managing the full development life cycle by allowing you to have multiple instances and multiple repositories. So I'm working in this demo environment, and you can see I've got a number of different folders in my tree. Let's just talk a little bit about administrative functions. First of all, this is a native application, so I understand things like the library list. So unlike some other tools which might be generic across all platforms, they wouldn't understand libraries, etc. I understand library lists and job descriptions, and I manage them for you. Users, so I must be an authorized user to use the development client, and I can control what functions each different developer is allowed to do within RODIN. One of my primary tasks is to build a data warehouse or data mart tables. So I'm now looking at a list here of the tables that have been built in this environment. And the one I've got here, I've got ready to work with is this customers table. So I can go and look at the structure of that table, so I can see the columns that exist in it. I can see the primary key and the authorized users, and I can make changes. If I want to add a new column to this, I can just simply select it from the list of available columns on the left-hand side and then just drop it onto the table here. If I want to create another index, I can simply drop an index header and say I want to use a telephone number as part of my index. So it's very, very quick and easy to develop and manage tables and they're based on indexes. I'm going to exit out of there. No, I don't want to save my changes. As well as building tables and indexes, I can also build and manage views. So quite often I will build some views maybe across multiple tables, and this will simplify my access for my report authors. So if I look at a view that I've already got built here, And here I can see the tables, the joined relationships, etc. So I've selected certain columns from each of these 3 tables. We've talked about security. Security is very important. So here, if I look at the properties for this view, I can see that I've got this one secured by an authorization list called RODIN. So I might create authorization lists, one for the payroll department, and one for the marketing department, one for financial, etc. So each department could be have access to just those views or just those tables that they're authorized to. So building and managing tables is very, very straightforward. Let's look at introducing or understanding my sources of data. So here I'm going up to my data source definitions node in the tree, and I've got various different groupings here, so I can create groups of different data sources, maybe by application or by function. So let's have a look at one of these existing ones. Let's look at my customer master file. So I can see my column names, my SQL names if it has one, data types for the different columns, etc. If I look at my invoice detail table here, I'm going to select this invoice date column. I can see at the database level it's simply 6-digit hexadecimal, but in RODIN's metadata we have redefined this as a date in century Julian format, so this could well be a J.D. Edwards date. So now, whenever we're working with this column, RODIN knows it's a date and knows how to convert it to a real date value. And just to make these tables available is very straightforward. I simply select the folder that I want to add it to, hit the New button, and go through a wizard where I can select the library that the table exists in, select the table that I want to introduce, and just simply hit Next. If it happened to be J.D. Edwards, I could tell it which data dictionary to use, and Next, and Finish. And we've now brought in some information about this table. So identifying the data sources is very easy. We've defined our targets, so let's look at the ETL processes. So, I'm going into my extract program definitions folder, and here's a good example that we've previously built in our demo environment. This is a customer extract, so visually I can see here I'm loading data from 5 different source tables, doing some processing, and loading out into one target table. So let's see what's happening in here. So the first panel I've got is how those tables are joined to each other. Let me just unjoin this. Let me do that again. Sorry, I must remove the mapping. So now I can see that this is the key of this column, this table, but there's no join that's been defined. So I can simply drag that and drop it onto the foreign key, and now I've defined how those tables relate to each other. I can also generate new pieces of data. For example, if I look at this one, bring this up here, I can see this is just a nice big embedded if-else rule. Probably would have been better to do this with a case statement, but this is just the way this one happened to be defined. So by using these rules, I can derive new pieces of data. And the rule editor is very, very user-friendly. It's simply select the function that you want to perform, and then you've got the test or the conditions or the factor 1 or factor 2. So everything that we do here, I can only select things that are syntactically valid. So it makes it very easy for me as maybe a layperson, not a non-programmer, to develop business rules based just on logic without having to understand programming languages as COBOL or RPGLE. So that's getting my data sources organized. My source to target mapping. So here, let's highlight customer number. I can see that this source column called custno is mapped to a target column called cust number. Once again, if a mapping is missing, visually I've got an indication that there is no mapping to this column. So to create the mapping, I simply drag and drop, and the mapping is created. If I wanted to add an extra target table to this, I can simply drag, find the table on the left-hand side, and drag it over. And notice that it's added it here, and also because a lot of the columns were, in the 2 tables were in common, they are both, the mappings have already been automatically been completed. We don't have a lot of time, so there's an awful lot more that oops, what is going on here? There we go. There's an awful lot more that I could be showing you right now, but we've only got a very limited amount of time to talk about this. Let's have a look at another extract here. I'm going to look at this invoice extract. So in this particular one, I'm loading multiple target tables as well as my detail level table. I'm also loading into 2 summary data marts. So RODIN has the capability of loading into both detail and summary tables at the same time with different subsets of data in each of the tables. The metadata, you might have noticed as I've been selecting different objects that I've got some text that's been showing in this panel at the bottom. So this is my free form text. If I select my invoice detail table, I have no text. If I select the program definition itself, I have some text. So I've got the capability of building in this descriptive text to describe the ETL processes, etc. I can run this. Okay, simply, there's a number of different parameters, but I can simply hit the run button. It is now submitted that to my RODIN subsystem. It's probably already finished. Nope, very close to it. There we go. It's finished. And now that has just loaded the data, I can look at my run history. And the most recent one is at the top. So this is the details here. So it shows me how many tables were loaded, how many rows were processed, how many omits, and I had some errors. So let's go and look at these 425 rejects here. I'm actually going to look at the report. And here's my error report that was automatically created. I'm running 2 monitors here, so what's happening is some of these are popping up on my second monitor rather than the primary monitor. So you can see that I have 424 errors. The first error was because I didn't find a matching record in my primary table, and the second one was a user-defined rule. So RODIN automatically traps and identifies the errors that occur in an ETL process, stages the data, and allows you the opportunity to correct and rerun. So I'm getting short of time here, so I'm going to switch back now to I think we've covered all of the parts of the demonstration that I was looking to talk about. So that's a very quick rundown of RODIN's ETL capabilities. If you have any further questions, please type them into the chat area, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. So I'm now going to hand this over to Heath as the presenter for the next part. Jen, could you change that? I don't see Heath in the list here.
Great, thank you. Go ahead and switch that over. All right, thanks, AJ. Appreciate that. And I know we want to leave some time for a little Q&A at the end there, so I'm going to definitely fly through the slides pretty quickly here. I'd rather show you the live visualization stuff live versus going through a PowerPoint slide. All right. First of all, again, with the data that's been set up out there, it's been loaded. SQL can deliver that systemized data in the format that you prefer quickly and very efficiently. You can rely on SQL to meet all of your system and my data access and analysis needs. SQL can be installed or is installed on the I-Series, which then gives you that access to that data. So you can visualize that information right when you need to and how you need to. You'll find that SQL allows you to build the different SQL objects such as views, reports, worksheets, table scripts, dashboards, and more. You'll find that with SQL and Viewpoint and the different ways, you can actually display the data, you can create PC documents, you can email that information out. So a lot of ways to distribute that information. And what's nice about SQL, it is command-driven. That is, you can actually take those commands that run the SQL objects and actually schedule them on the I-Series. So those jobs can be scheduled to run daily, weekly, monthly, as needed. So what is SQL? First of all, SQL is that business information tool. It's been around for quite a while. It actually started back on the System 38, so it's been around for quite a while. It is suitable for several different types of businesses, your manufacturing, financial, food services, energy, and more. It will fit those small or large system organizations out there. And it actually will empower your users. I mean, they can actually use their typical Windows skills, double-click, right-click, just to view the data or to send it out as needed. And we allow you to actually, pick and choose what the viewers can do. What can they look at or what can they do with that data. And you'll find that your developers will be able to use SQL to enhance and complete many of the projects in a fraction of the normal time. And this term, the systemized-centric, what this really means is that we've never lost touch with the strength of the platform. Its renowned reliability, scalability, and security, just to name a few. We continue to support the other interfaces. You got your 5250 sessions, the Windows GUI, and also the browser. With SQL, we actually allow you 3 different ways to get at those objects. The first one here is dealing with SQL Viewpoint. With SQL Viewpoint, you'll find that actually, first of all, it's a tool that you install on your PC. So it's your thick client or the GUI front end. With Viewpoint, you can design, but you can also access those objects, your dashboard, shortcuts, and more. But of course, you got the green screen. We always have those users out there who love the green screen. So from the 5250 session, you can actually run your SQL objects or your commands to get the objects. And then the browsers. Through SQL Web Interface, you can turn around and access those SQL objects, including dashboards and web page links and more. To give you the big picture, starting here in the top right-hand corner, we have the views, your definition. This is where it's defined over those tables, over those files that have been built for you. And with that information that comes back, the users can do a lot of things with the results. Besides displaying them, they can sort the information on the fly. They can create graphs. They can take that information, turn it into a PC document, maybe the XLS, a PDF, a text file, HTML file, you name it. You can take the information, email it out, as an attachment, a PDF, an XLS, and so forth. If the information is summarized, you can do some drill downs into the detailed data. You can build graphs. Just a couple clicks from the data that comes back, you can actually build your own graph, and we give you a full toolbar to customize those graphs. We allow you to create some reports where you include not just the data, but maybe you want to control the font type, the font size, insert some logos or images. And then when you save it and then open it up, it always looks great for you. We also allow you to create a pivot type table, where we allow you to rearrange the columns and the fields to re-summarize that information in the middle. Maybe you have that 30,000 records, but looking at 30,000 records, it's really hard to understand what's going on. But if you summarize it into a table format, it'll make a big picture come true to you, and then you can turn around and save it right back to maybe an Excel document. With the different SQL objects, you can actually place them to a dashboard. These dashboards will allow you to actually view the data, either the data itself or graphs. You can include PC objects. A lot of things can be included in these dashboards. You can set up refresh rates. Maybe you want to have the data refresh every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, or something like that. What's also really nice here, too, with the dashboard is that these dashboards can be opened up through Viewpoint, from the PC GUI there, or through the browser using the SQL Web Interface. The next thing is dealing with SQL scripts. Basically, just think of these SQL scripts, and including dashboards, really. They're a single object to the end user. You click on that object, it does something. Either displays the data or does some work behind it, as such a script would do. A script could actually be executing several commands in a row. Those commands could be all SQL commands or a combination of SQL and OS400 commands. But the idea here is you can actually display a lot of reports. Maybe you want to consolidate some data. It can do a lot of work for you behind the scenes. Last but not least is the applications. And with the applications, it's another way to actually drill down into your detailed data through a predefined path. So again, some additional options to really look at that information, to visualize what you need to see and how to get it. All right. The next thing here, I'm going to be jumping into actually showing you some live demonstration. The best way to see this information is to see it live. So let me go ahead and jump out of here. Let's see. I'm sorry, I forgot how to show my desktop here all of a sudden. I need to change this around. There we go. Okay. I'm getting a little delay. Try and change the screen here, Jen, to
let me just see if I can do it.
there it goes. I was clicking that screen, but it kept flicking away, going away on me. All right.
You got it?
Yep, I think I got it. Should see my background here now. You see my desktop?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. What I want to do is actually start off here is showing you some viewpoint objects. And on my desktop here, I have a shortcut. This shortcut is a PC object. I could email it out to Doug. I can email it to Jen and all that, or AJ. As long as they have viewpoint installed, they can actually run this shortcut. So it's a definition over a SQL object. And when you run it, is to actually make connection to that database, to the iSeries, and retrieve that data back. So it is using Viewpoint that's installed on the PC. With the information that you're looking at here, we have some data and some graphs. This information up on top here is grouped. It's summarized by the sales year. And because it is grouped, you can actually dynamically drill down into that detailed data behind it. So maybe you have some information you want to really get extra, or, dive into it a little more. If I do a right click on 2009, I get these two dynamic options, regroup or show details. By doing show details, it comes back with a list of fields or the descriptions on what maybe I want to drill into. As you can see here, I have a lot of things I can drill into, a lot of different field names out there to find within those files, but let's just pick on sales region. So it's going to pass information for 2009, returning all the different sales regions within 2009. Let me go ahead and just drag that over. We have 5 different sales regions. I can take this information, do a quick sort on it. You can see that region 50 has the lowest margin percent. Maybe I want to drill into that. Right click again, show details. And now I can pick and choose what fields I want to drill into. Maybe the name, address, state, maybe the current balance due. So you can select one or several different fields to drill into. And again, this is drilling into. So from 2009 to region 50, and now we get some additional customer information back. At any point, you can take this information, do a file. You can do a save as. You can take this information and save it as a PC document, to wherever you want to save it within your networking there. Or maybe you want to specify really what type of object you want to save it as. You got your XLS, PDF, text file, HTML, and so forth. You can build your own customized type as well. Let me go ahead and cancel out there. Maybe you want to do some graphing. All you have to do, let me go ahead and just sort this really quickly, just by region. Highlight the column or the data you want to graph, and click the graph icon. There's a full toolbar, allows you to customize the graph as needed, colors, text, titles, and so forth. Maybe you want to just do a quick change here to pie or bar chart, but like percentages, very simply, you can change that around. So a lot of things you can do with the data that's right there at your fingertips, making it really easy to understand it and get a good analysis of it. All right, let me close that up. The next thing is actually a dashboard, and also at this point, it is a PC object, so it can be shared, it can be put in a shared drive, but to help with a little bit of time here, I already have it open. Let me bring it over. And there's a lot of information here in this dashboard. So it's a little bit on the busier side, but I am showing a lot of different things, from showing the data, graphics, and text, gauges, and graphs, and all that. And with this information, again, it's live data. We actually ran over your data, your files that are out there, retrieving the information back. You may see the accounts receivable data here go blank for a second or two. If it does, it's actually being refreshed. The data is actually rerunning the SQL object to return that live data. What's nice here too is that we do have summarized by sales region. So again, I can do the right click and I can go into the show details or maybe regroup the data. Again, we're doing some dynamic stuff on the fly. Maybe I just want to regroup by the states versus the region. So again, we're going to run over your data that's out there, returning that information in a format that you need. Again, you can take this information, take a file, save it as your different PC objects, or export it right to an Excel document. A lot of options. We also have action buttons. I love action buttons within a dashboard. They really help keep the dashboard kind of clean and organized. In this case here, we have a shipping analysis. When you build the action button, the developer, the designer of this, actually has a choice in what to do with the results, and displaying them, emailing them, taking the results, saving them as a PC document, and so forth. In this case, it is a display. And I'm running the prompted view. So the view actually prompts you for some variables. In this case, the sales region. What regions do I want? I'm going to grab just a handful. We also hit OK there, and it actually will pass that information out there, returning, of course, the records that match up to those regions. All right, we also have some graphs that correspond to the data. And by the way, the data does not have to be displayed to have a graph on the dashboard. You can actually hide the data. Another action button example up here on top is actually an email, where it prompts the user to actually enter in the email address and such, and you can actually specify what type of attachment, XLS, text file, and so forth. You can schedule it, allow you to schedule these tasks to run, either using the IBM scheduler or robot schedule. And then when you're ready, of course, you hit OK, and it'll actually run and email the results out. All right, I'm going to jump out of here. The next thing I want to show you is actually going into Viewpoint. So let me go grab Viewpoint. Now, Viewpoint, that is a thick client. That gets installed in your PC. It comes with SQL. You can install on any number of PCs you want out there. And it gives you the ability to access those SQL objects. And what I'm going to start off with actually is a library with no SQL objects, this HK demo library. And again, SQL is that visualization tool. It allows you to look at your information how you need to, but it does do a few other things, such as it allows you to actually import query objects. Maybe you have some query objects or query definitions that you want to start with. We'll import query definition. Quickly here, I'm going to type in the library. I just have a handful of query definitions out here, and using the PC functions, I can grab all of them really quickly or highlight them, import as a view, and select the import option there. And you'll see those query definitions come over and be converted into a SQL view. So at this point, the users actually do a double click to run them. They can also do a right click. Besides displaying the results, they can take the results, send to Excel, open it in Design to make further enhancements to this view. You can also do, you can create additional tables, reports off of this. So a lot of things you can do right away that quickly with the product. What I'm going to do to show you some different things you can actually get for results-wise, I'm going to jump into a different library called HK Demo 2. And within this library, I do have a lot of different SQL objects. And what I want to do is actually start off is by going into my views. I have a handful of views out here already, so I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here. Oops, sorry about that, I clicked the wrong button here. And these views here with a P indicate it's a prompted view. A variable is being passed to at runtime. So when I run this, again, you can run it from the viewpoint. You can run it from a shortcut from your PC or through a dashboard. But this particular view will prompt the user. At this point here, we can select what states I want to get some information back on. We'll pick on California, Illinois, and then also Minnesota. We have a date range. So we've got a date for a variable. We can either type it in there directly or use a little drop down, and then you can navigate back and forth as well. Click on the month. Again, a lot of different things you can do here to get to the date range that you need to, and then when you're ready, just hit OK. So those variable values will be passed and then return the records that match up. This particular view is actually set with some KPIs, some key performance indicators, different ways to highlight the data. But what we're seeing here is some variable values being passed to California, Illinois, Minnesota on the right-hand side. We also have the date range up on top. So right away you can see what information you're looking at. And then of course don't forget you always have the ability to save the results as a different PC objects or export them to Excel. So that is one view there. The next thing I want to show you is actually a report. And reports, tables, those are always built over an underlying view or an SQL statement. This particular report, let me go ahead and just run it right away. It is built over a single view out there. But what's nice about a report here, this is a host report. So it actually was built in a temporary spool file back in the I-series. So it may look very much like a spool file, but I did enhance it a little bit by suppressing some data. I don't have the customer name repeating every time or the customer number. I got some breaks in here. You can see that the order total, here we have some different order totals or subtotals by the customer and the overall grand total within the same page. As I page forward, it jumps to the next customer. So I actually set up a page break by the customer. So nice report, very easy to create, very easy to get going with that. A lot of options with distribution and so forth. That is your SQL host report. Let me jump over to a client report. And we'll go ahead and just run this one right away as well. The client report really takes the report to the next level. It allows you to really enhance the data that's in the report so you can actually visualize and look at the information and have it stand out to the user. And you'll see that right away. You can actually have some logos up on top or some boxing of the data, so it does enhance the data here, as you'll see here shortly. So here we have the company logo up on top, some data, really the data, it's a nice and clean looking report. Again, this is the same data as before, so as I page through, we have the customer page breaks and everything. I jump to the last page just to show you can actually include graphs, charts, and so forth. All right, close that one up. Let me go into tables. This time I'm going to do a right click on the sales table up top here, open design mode. I mentioned earlier about pivoting the data where you can rearrange the columns and fields to re-summarize information, and this is one type of table you can do that. This is called the SQL host table. It runs off of the I-series. And just like the report, it is actually built over another view. So there's actually a view underneath the Files and Fields tab there, but due to time I'm going to keep right in this path here. And what we're looking at is dimensions on the left-hand side, year, region, categories on top here per month, and then the amount where it's being summarized. And to give you the big picture, let me go ahead and display the results of this. And you'll see that the year and regions are broken down. Here it comes. Bring it down. On the left-hand side. So we got sales year, sales region. We got the month going across the top. We got percentages, totals at the bottom. So you can really customize these tables to include a lot of different things. So if you don't want the percentages, you don't have to do that. Or if you want ranking, you can do that. But to show you pivoting, just really quickly, I'm going to grab region, and I'll just bring it up on top. Just simple change there, but it will make a big difference in the data and how it's being presented. You can grab any of these fields here too, by the way, and bring them over there and so forth, so you can really, in a sense, drill down into the data that you need. So now we have the regions followed by the years and so forth. So that is your SQL host table. Very quickly here, client table. Client table works a little bit differently. I'm actually going to run it from my PC. Client table, when you run a client table, it actually downloads all the records to your PC. So instead of waiting 2-3 minutes for the data, I already got it saved to my PC. But also because it's saved to my PC, I can actually work remotely from the iSeries. So I can be disconnected from the iSeries, massage the data as needed to get it down to what really makes sense to me. And just like the host table, I can pivot the information, but what's nice about this, I'm pivoting the actual data instead of being in design mode. And to show you a product, I can bring that up here and drop it off. Maybe the country, bring that up. Family, product family over here, get a little drop down. Maybe I can leave out the country and a few other items. And it suppresses that information. Same thing, music videos, and focus on books. So again, this is all live, very quick, easy to do. At any point on these cells, if I double click on a cell, it's going to show you that information that it took to build that information, that data. This is all there in your PC. All right, the last thing I want to show you, I'm not going to go too much here more, but is dealing with the browser. And through SQL Web Interface, we allow you to actually access those SQL objects, access the SQL data. And I have a couple pages ready up here. This is, by the way, using a new Explorer interface. Here is our dashboard, one example of the dashboard. Let me go ahead and refresh it all here so you can get it out from back. But within these dashboards, again, you're looking at your data from your database, from your files that have been loaded up there. And if you have data that's been summarized, you can get at the information. You can do the drill downs, as I mentioned earlier. You get to regroup, show details. You can take the information, you can save the results, print them, email them. Again, all those options are right here with that data. So however you want it to get it, you can get it that way. Here's another example of a dashboard. This particular dashboard is all gauges and graphs and stuff like that. So another way to display the information that you need to look at. All right. I know due to time here, I'm going to stop here at this point and hand things back over to Doug. All right, Doug, you should be good to go, sir.
All right, so if everybody is looking at my screen, should be looking at mine at this point, with the summary on it. Let's talk about going back to what we started with. We started with what we promised you we would do, is give you 3 reasons why you should invest your hour with us. One of them was to learn the key questions you asked to make sure you got a successful project that's planned. I think we've done that. Understand what ETL is, the kinds of things it does for you for getting the data ready to present to those users. And I think AJ did that in a fabulous way for all of those of you who speak Australian. That means you probably are carrying an alligator in one arm and a Foster's in the other, but you got the picture of that. Then Heath gave you the whole view of how do you handle the visualization piece of this for those end users. And so I think that certainly we've accomplished that one as well. So I think all the things that we talked about are delivered. So now let's go back to that classic business model that we started with a production data store, an intermediate data store, with extract, transform, and load, visualization, and let's put product names to pieces. So if you use the RODIN product for the extract, transform, and load layer and the SQL software, report writing, and visualization functions, you have a complete solution that you can use to create a business intelligence project. Now, that all seems pretty easily, but we do some things that make it even easier still. So we do create it as an IBM I-centric solution because we know that most of the people on this particular webinar and the people that we talk to are IBM I people. We want to keep the workload and the activity on their systems. We've done this as a partnership between two of the leading companies in the I-Series space. Coglin Mill and Help Systems certainly have been in this business for a long time. They know the space, they know the customers, they know the needs of the business. We've done it with some special bundling and pricing of software. Now, we really haven't talked about pricing and bundling, but in conjunction with this series of webinars that we're doing, both Coglin and Help have come up with some special bundles and pricing on our software to accompany the initiative that we're doing. We provide special installation assistance for people that want to take this particular path and try the solution that we've spelled out. We make it easy for people to access ongoing training and support, and we have some on-site training incentives for allowing people to come on-site and give you training. So we're really putting our money where our mouth is with this project and making it easier for our customers to take this as part of what they would do. Now, one last thing we'll throw on top of all of that is the notion of a solution edition. IBM recognizes its premier partners and uses a technology solution called the Solution Edition to allow customers to buy the software from those ISVs and fresh Power 7 hardware from IBM and get additional discounts and reduction in prices on the hardware and on the IBM I licenses that are associated with that hardware, which will pay for, in some cases, all of the software, or at the very least will pay for a significant portion of the software that you would need to initiate a project like this. So there's financial incentives to help you get this done. With that summary done, then I think the thing we should do next is, Jen, go back to you and let's open up for questions and see if people have questions they'd like to ask. Are you there? Jen?
Sorry, I muted myself.
Oh, God. Oh, you've muted yourself. Oh.
I did. I'm still laughing about the Fosters and the alligator. Hold on a minute. That was really good. That was really good. I'm going to put this back on your screen, Doug, because you have that final screen. So
Okay.
I'll put that back to you. I'm not quite sure what happened there. There we go. I do have a question, and this actually pertains to both of you, so I'm going to ask Heath. Are you still there?
I sure am.
Okay, wonderful. So let's start with, I'll start this for AJ and Heath. Does the security that either of your products use, is it I-Series user and group profile security? AJ, we'll go with you first.
He's probably got himself muted. Looks like it.
Sorry.
But SQL, we do recognize the authorities out there.
AJ, you're not muted anymore. Sorry.
Okay, every time I went to unmute myself, I think you remuted me at the same time. Yeah, we use I-Series authority. So every time we create a table, it's you specify who is to be the owner, what private authorities, but also make use of authorization lists, which are a great way of simplifying group authorities. So yes, okay. I-Series authorities.
Doug, would you mind showing that last screen with the contact information for us? Because it seems that we've come to the end of our hour. We're going to go ahead and stay on and answer some of these questions. But if you do have to get in touch with us, we do have this slide here if you'd like to copy down this information. We will be providing the presentation and the recording to the webinar, a link to this by tomorrow. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you can go to either one of our websites or email Suzette or myself, and we'll send you the information or answer any of one of your questions. And thank you for joining us.
On there, Jen?
Excuse me?
Is the chart that you need on there now?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. But I do see that people are dropping off, and we're going to stay on and answer these questions if we can, so we'll just continue. For AJ, does RODIN create SQL tables on the I-Series as part of the ETL process?
Yes, the tables that you create through RODIN are created through SQL, so we use the DDL language to create them, and also views and indexes based on them, yes.
Okay. And another question for you, is RODIN able to produce offline documentation of data mapping and metadata information? Yeah,
one of the things that you can do is to publish out the metadata in HTML format. So you can create it, put it up on your intranet, or even on your PC, and then it's accessible to anybody with a browser offline. So you don't need to be connected to the iSeries, you don't need to have the development client installed, you can take it away with you on vacation, etc.
Okay, thanks. Heath, you said that we can install Viewpoint on any PC. So how are we charged, per user or by PC? And does it run on Windows 7?
Yes, it does run Windows 7. And there's no charge installing it wise on any number of PCs. The licensing occurs back in the iSeries as in the actual number of active current users. So you can actually have unlimited or a certain number of users using the product at one time.
Okay, great, thanks. Another one for AJ. Will RODIN create SQL views that clean up the data rather than ETL?
I'm not quite sure what's meant by cleaning up the data. We can create SQL views, and in those SQL views you can span multiple tables, select the columns, and create derived columns. So do additional calculations. But cleaning up the data is really something that's an ETL responsibility rather than a view responsibility. Because remember, a view is simply a view over the table. So if somebody accesses the table directly rather than through the view, seeing the cleaned up data. So it really should be done before while you're loading the table.
Okay, Eric, if you want to expand on that, did he answer your question? Just let us know if you're still on. Chris, we're going to answer your bar question offline. And another question was, how hard is it to install and set up both products? So Heath, how hard is it to install and set up?
Actually, it's very easy. All of our software is actually available on our website. Typically, when I spend maybe, I don't know, on average 15-20 minutes downloading the products and installing them. So it's pretty quick and easy to get them installed and up and running right away.
And it's pretty much the same thing for RODIN. You can download it from our website. The installation process is very, very straightforward. You can be up and running within 20 to 30 minutes after starting the download. And the installation software comes with the demo environment, the one that I was using today, so you can go and play with those pre-existing definitions before you start creating your own.
Okay. Stay on the line, AJ. How does what does RODIN require to access other data sources? Just ODBC, specifically Lotus Notes Domino data.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, we use JDBC. It's a Java process that runs on the iSeries that pulls the data from let's say, non-IBM databases. If it's a DB2 on another platform, we can do a direct connection through DRDA and CLI. But if it's SQL Server, Oracle, it's JDBC. Notes data, we don't have a direct connector today, but we are in the middle of discussions with an organization that is got a very promising connector that we may be bundling with RODIN in the next release. So I'd like to talk to whoever asked that question to understand what their needs are, because it's certainly something that's hot on our agenda right now.
Okay, I'll provide that email information for you offline and connect you two up. Does the ability to create dashboards come with SQL, or is it separate?
It does come with SQL. Yep, you can create the dashboards using SQL Viewpoint, and it all comes with SQL itself there.
And yes, you can get a copy of the presentation. As I mentioned, it should be available, barring any technical difficulties in this recording. We don't have to re-record it, knock wood, by tomorrow. And I think that's all for questions. If I know there's just a few of you that are still hanging on the line, and thank you again for sticking with us. If you have any questions, you can type them into the question portion of the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Anything you want to say, Heath or Doug, to wrap this up?
That's about it. I mean, really, we covered all there, but guys, if you have any questions, same thing for AG, I'm sure we'd be willing to work with you guys, get it installed, let's test it out, see if it works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We are, I think with both of the products, it's, that you can glean a lot more understanding and information by getting it installed in your own system and playing with it a little bit by yourself. And we will give you all the support that is necessary to make sure that's a productive evaluation period. Like most tools, they're both powerful tools, so a little bit of hand-holding will go a long way to make the most of your evaluation.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, I see that folks are dropping off, and since we don't have anything else or any more time left, I am going to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. And Doug Fulmer, it's always been a pleasure. Thank you for kicking this off. Heath, thank you very much for joining us. AJ, it's always a pleasure to do webinars with you. My name is Jen Halverson, and on behalf of the teams here at SQL Software, Help Systems, RODIN Software, and Coglin Mill, I just want to bid everybody a great afternoon. If you have any questions, please let us know and check out our websites at www.sql-software.com and www.thinkrodin.com. Have a great day, y'all. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.